Hi, welcome to Let Us Know. This is me, your presenter, Lado Waden Jada. In our today's program, we're going to talk about Maridi State. As you know, Maridi is one of the historical places in South Sudan, and it has become a state. So today, we are honored to join us in our program, His Excellency Governor of Maridi State, Africano Mande. He's going to tell us more about Maridi. Your Excellency, welcome to our program, first of all, and could you please tell us something brief about general situation in the area, in the state?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me in this program. I'm happy to be here. Well, as you have put it, I think the most important thing is that of all the four states that emerged from the former Western Equatorial State, Maridi State is the most stable and also progressive, if you will. So, and that's an important ingredient. So Maridi State is relatively stable. The security is relatively good, and it's progressing in terms of day-to-day lives and trying to rehabilitate and rebuild most of the structures and infrastructure following the deteriorating situation in the country as a whole.
You talk of progressing. Can you elaborate more? What progress are you really making, especially when you become a governor in that state?
Well, I think if you will recall, Maridi State, just like many of the areas in Western Equatoria, the former Western Equatoria State by then, Maridi State had some problems. There was, pockets of instability, constant abduction, and people running up and down because of pockets of insecurity in the areas. So when we went to the state and set up a government, I think the most important progress, which we may not want to call it achievement because it's progressive, so the most important progress we made is to stabilize the area. So that in itself is progress. And of course, you can imagine putting stability in place, that in itself is a stepping stone towards a lot of things. Agricultural production is actually in the increase, particularly with the allocation of 20 tractors, which was given by His Excellency the President to all the states in the Republic of South Sudan. We put that into use, particularly last year, and that was able to boost agricultural production to the extent that as we talk now, food continued to flow from Maridi State to areas of Western Lakes and beyond. And even food has found its way to Jubek State and to the center here through Yorol. And food has been going also to Amadi and even to parts of Budwe because of the fact that there were instability in the areas of Budwe. So that in itself is progress, and we are progressing with that. At the same time, there has been a complete lull in infrastructural development for the last 3 or 4 years. So most of the roads, particularly the feeder roads, had already closed down. So one of the things we are doing, we are trying to reopen the roads within Maridi State by not only having access to it, but also trying to see if we can rehabilitate it by ourselves. So these are the kind of progress I'm talking about. But the most critical ingredient of every progress is the fact that there is a need for a plan. There is a need for a plan. So you are probably aware, we opened our State Legislative Assembly a few months back, and I presented a comprehensive policy statement, which also mentioned the development of what we call Maridi State Vision 2025. It is more of a 10-year conceptual framework as to where we want to go. And that Vision 2025, every sector, we will talk about agriculture, we'll talk about health and education and so forth, will anchor their policies, will anchor their plans, will anchor their strategic plan on that particular Vision 2025. So that is being developed, and we believe that it has taken a little bit long developing it, but we believe that within the next 1 month or so, it will be ready and it will be a public document. So that is a conceptual framework where all the other sectors will anchor their activities on it. But I think what is so important is that we didn't develop that in a vacuum. We also are cognizant of the fact that there are strategic plans, there are comprehensive plans within the government at the center here in Juba. So we also developed we are developing our vision with the view that we do not want to deviate from what the central government has set. For example, in the areas of agriculture, much of the things we're talking in that document, Vision 2025, is basically trying to put into context what we call CAMP, the Comprehensive Agricultural Master Plan, which was developed here. So that is an important ingredient. So in a nutshell, this is what we refer to as being progressive.
So generally, can you agree that Maridi is not hit by hunger as South Sudan is now all over, throughout the country? People are crying of the hunger because you said you have made the maximum use of your tractors, and then again, what I know very much, that some of the tractors has been given to the states without compliments. And I don't know, how did you manage yours to go through this?
Well, I think implements were given for the tractors. So I cannot talk about other states, but we received our implements, such as the harrows and the discs and so forth. And besides, there has been some discs even in the state. But the bottom line is, I think it's too early for us to reach a conclusion that because there is looming concern about hunger in South, not just South Sudan, but even other countries, even Kenya and so forth. I think it's too early for us to start speculating that there will or there will not be hunger in Maridi State. Partly because much of the starvation in the region, there is a knock-on effect, there is a domino effect. So when there is famine in Jubek State, for example, of course there will be a knock-on effect on Maridi State. There will be a knock-on effect on the adjacent state. If there is famine in the former Lake states or Western Lakes, there will be a knock-on effect on Maridi State. For example, the concern at the moment that is dominating most of our discussions as a government of the state is that because of the food deficit in some of the adjacent states, selling food has become extremely marketable. So the farmers in Maridi State have for the first time discovered markets in the adjacent states. So what do you expect to be happening? Everybody is rushing, taking whatever they have to these states. And there's been a cry that the government must intervene so that we try to stop the sale of these food items to these states. But again, this is simple economics, it's business. When there is high demand, then the supply will of course continue to flow. So we said, well, let the economic factors take their course. So we do not want to intervene. So our concern as a government is that the household will end up selling all the food they have because of the desire to have money so that they are able to have other produce that they do not have, and that is likely to create a situation of deficit of food in the area. At the same time, because of the concern of food deficit in other areas, and given the fact that Maridi State is relatively stable with running schools and so forth, so there is an influx of people from the other states. Children are coming from different states to come and study in the area. Families are moving their households into Maridi State. So you can actually notice an increase in the population, particularly within the urban settlement, such as Maridi Town and also Iba Town. So that in itself, if you have a big influx of people who move in and have not had farms, have not produced, or they do not have any access to food that they produce immediately, obviously that will create a food deficit. So we are taking that seriously. It's a concern, and what we're trying to do about it is basically to try to sensitize people that if you have X number of tons of grain, please don't sell everything. Don't sell everything.
They're supposed to live for themselves also.
Precisely.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we are also passing signal that, okay, if there are markets for your produce, so you should try to produce more. So basically, this is how we look at it. So it is too early for us to conclude that there is hunger or there is no hunger. But I think the most important thing is that whenever there is hunger in any area in South Sudan, it has to be our concern. It has to be a concern of everybody. So we cannot sit back and say we are an island in Maridi State and we have enough food, and it's our concern. We have to do something about it. We have to mobilize. We have to raise our voices. I think you are aware that around December, because of the crisis that happened in Yei River State, and particularly in one of the new counties of Tore, which is a part of Yei River State, there's been a very big influx of civilians who are wandering in the bushes because they were scared of the clashes that happened between our military and the armed groups. So I got a report that there were about 1,600 plus men and women and children loitering around the bushes around Tore, and they started dying because they did not have food. They were dying because there were no medicine and so forth. So when I got the alert, immediately we took a move as a government of the state. I don't like always second-hand information. I always want to go and verify myself. So I went there with my State Minister of Information, Culture, Youth and Sport, and we were able to take a truck full of food, from Meridi State, and we were able to take a truck with medical supply, and we rushed into the areas and we were able to rescue this big number of population who are in the wilderness. And after doing that, then I called my brother, Honorable David Lokonga in Yei River State, and I said, I'm right now sitting in your territory with your population, and these are the steps we have actually taken. So for us, any concern in any area in South Sudan, it's our responsibility. It's a collective responsibility for this country. So that's how we look at it, and I believe we will come out of it collectively, this looming concern about hunger and food deficit in the country. But I think the president talked about it over and over for many years. The president has been talking about food security. The president is the chairperson of the food security body at the national level. We as governors are also the chairpersons of food security at the level of the state and so forth. So you can imagine the president saw it coming, and he raised the flag that we should mobilize. The call for food security must galvanize the entire country so that we produce. And for us, we took it seriously. Given the fact that we are an island, we don't receive food from anywhere. We produce our own tomatoes, we produce our own onions, we produce everything, in Meridi State. So that's how we look at it.
Okay, Governor, Meridi is a known town by then, historically.
Right.
And there's some people still need to know more about Meridi. When we talk of Meridi, what is that Meridi is famous of? Yani, is known of? When somebody talk about Meridi, it's known because there's something that already Meridi is familiar with.
Well, I think anybody in South Sudan, a Junubi who does not know Meridi, then that's a concern in itself. Meridi, there are a series of things.
I remember also there are generations.
Precisely. There are a series of things. When you talk about Meridi, those things come to your mind. First of all, let me begin by some quick historical facts. You know for a fact that the British almost went into battle with the Belgians over Meridi because of the geostrategic location of Meridi, and that's why the British colonial administration at the time had a very big presence in Meridi, which is reflected by the construction of the famous Meridi Dam, and so forth. Now later than that, for a fact that most of the education institutions in South Sudan, just like a few areas in South Sudan, are located in Meridi. The teachers training institutions are in Meridi. Center for Curriculum Development in Meridi. Quite a number of primary schools, boarding primary schools and high schools and so forth in Meridi. Above all, strategically, Meridi was a home to one of the biggest military bases in South Sudan that belonged to Khartoum, the Hajana. And it was done deliberately by people like Nimeri because that was a strategic reserve. In an event there is a problem, then he can just fly from Khartoum straight to Meridi and conduct every military operation from there, reach some serious decision from Meridi. So Meridi strategically is known for having that big military base.
Governor, let us go for a break and then we'll be back and continue with our discussions.
All right, thank you.
Let us go for a break and then we'll be back and continue with our discussions. Welcome back to Let Us Know. We are discussing with the governor of Meridi State, His Excellency Africano Mande, who is telling us more about Meridi. Governor, you are telling us still something about
Right. Well, I started by giving you some quick synopsis of history about Meridi, but I think also Meridi is a potential agricultural basket. The northern Sudanese or the Sudanese brothers and sisters have always talked about Meridi being the bride of Sudan at a time, the bread basket that will be able to feed the whole of Sudan. They did not say that out of the blue because it has the agricultural potential. It is known for production of fruits. You continuously see in the former Western Equatorial State the symbol of pineapple. Meridi is known also for producing a lot of pineapples, oranges, and also the palm trees. But it has a huge potential in terms of agriculture. No wonder why we are producing a lot of food and trying to sell the surplus. But at the same time, we have always portrayed Meridi as a potential tourist destination, because it has all the ingredients for that. The panoramic views, the weather, the climatic, the vegetation. We have got 2 national parks that are very active today. Last year we had a comprehensive meeting because in one of our parks we received over 20 elephants who are still in our parks and so forth. So these are potential tourist destination because of the huge potential. But at the same time, during the liberation days, after the liberation of Meridi became a springboard where most of the operations of the SPLA were launched. So the SPLA relaunched itself from Meridi. Meridi was a big center for the command and for administration and so forth, even for the liberation of Yei and actually beyond. The entire leadership was actually in Meridi, and that didn't happen out of the blue. Now, for a fact that one of our heroes, people like General Ali Butala, who is from Meridi, participated significantly in the struggle for the liberation of this country. There are quite a number of other heroes, such as Bulenganji, who participated significantly, and many others who participated. The late Alison Magaya, who was significant in Anyanya 1, comes from Meridi. People like Honorable John Maswa, who is still here with us today. People like Major General Henry Denima. These are some of the figures, the big contributors in the liberation of this country from the Anyanya days. So Meridi is known for all this. But let's talk about contemporary Meridi. And let's talk about contemporary Meridi. Today, Meridi has the National Health Science Institute that trains clinical officers from all over South Sudan, and it's active. So every year we receive more than 100 boys and girls from all over South Sudan, and they're being trained there for 3 years. Meridi also has a very huge facility for the National Teachers Training Institute, and I believe the Ministry of Education here at the center is going to start training. So that is situated in Meridi, and it's active. We have the Institute for training nurses. It's also situated in Meridi. For training midwives, also situated in Meridi. So you can imagine all these institutions are in Meridi, and they're actually active. We have one of the best boarding schools, strictly for girls and for sciences. It's strictly for girls and for sciences, and it's one of the best girls science high school, I think, in South Sudan, receiving girls from all over South Sudan being trained there. So Meridi is known for that. But I think what is so significant is that the people of Meridi are known for a number of things. They are known for being peaceful in their approaches of things. They are known for being resilient also during difficult times. And they are known for being progressive in terms of their thinking and so forth and so forth. Meridi has been used by quite a number of other subversive elements, to cause problems here and there. But I think the success that has brought stability in Meridi State, it's because of the resilience of the people of Meridi State, who say we should rather dialogue if there is a problem other than fighting. But that doesn't mean that the people of Meridi are cowards. They are not. They are good fighters, and everybody in South Sudan knows them for that. But I think that is so important. So Meridi is a melting point for everybody in South Sudan.
Okay, Governor, Meridi is an old town.
Right.
Can you tell us what is in that strategic plan you have made, or you presented to the Legislative Assembly? Is there any plan to create a new town altogether for Meridi?
Right. Well, when I went to Meridi as a governor, and one of the things we did immediately to avoid a clash between the state government and the localities and the county authorities, I made a pronouncement straight away that we do not have to sit on the county. We will have to give the county a breathing space. So I made it a point and wanted to set a precedent. So we moved out of the present county location. We strategically commissioned a committee to try to make some assessment and some studies of how we want to go about it. So the result that was brought forward is that let's try to divide the town into two. So those who are well versed with Meridi River basically divides the town into two. So we said the eastern part of the town should remain for the county, and indeed that's where the county structures, that's where the county commissioner and so forth stays. And then the western part is where we will slowly start developing the state capital, and that's precisely what we have been doing. So I stayed under a mango tree for a number of months, and we started rehabilitating structures and putting new structures and so forth, and we started by raising the flag of Meridi State in a historic ground which we named after one of our traditional historic chiefs called Chenambia. So we built what we call the Chenambia Memorial Ground. That's where we hoisted the flag of the state in July last year. And around that area, that's where we started putting the state government structures. That's where the state secretariat is. At the moment, we have rehabilitated an old building which is hosting me as the governor and my deputy and the entire secretariat, and also all the ministers. The ministries have already buildings and they are staying there, but each ministry, including the secretariat, also has a piece of land. And already others have started putting fences and so forth. So this is where we are. So we avoided the clash. Partly because we want to demonstrate to our people so that they are able to see our trail, our track record. Otherwise, if we went and sat on the commissioner, then we will just be presenting what the county already had. But Meridi has a number of infrastructure in terms of buildings. I think Meridi is commendable for having all sorts of buildings and structures. We have got running water in the town, which is functioning. So you pay your bill in your house and you have your water. We have electricity in the entire town, although it's generator based, but it's a little bit challenging to run it all the time because fuel is very expensive, obviously. But I think when I presented my policy statement to the Parliament, to the State Legislative Assembly, it was sector specific. It was sector specific. So we talked about agriculture, we talked about physical infrastructure, we talked about good governance, we talked about building the capacities of the local authorities. As you know, when we became a state, there were only two counties, Meridi County and Iba County. But we increased the number of counties, and we are also very careful. We didn't want to have excessive number of counties, so we only added 5. So altogether, we have got 7 counties. So I talked about that. So that constitutes the nucleus of this grand plan that we're talking about.
Okay, now, Governor, let us say maybe the 2025
right.
People will see a new city altogether of Meridi. Let us hope that.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Can you tell us, you have talked of something about national dialogue.
Right.
Or the dialogue among the people.
Right.
Can you tell us anything about this national dialogue? Have you already started, or how are you going to start? When are you going to start?
Well, to begin with, I think the national dialogue that everybody seems to be talking about now was started way back in late 2015 when we were appointed as governors. And I remember the first item in the directives of His Excellency the President was immediately to start implementing dialogue. Which is a subset of the what do you call it, the compromise agreement that was actually signed, so national dialogue. So the president was quite explicit with regards to his directives to us. So he insisted, ensure that there is national dialogue, talk about your issues, ensure that you implement the peace agreement, ensure that the country is stable. So I went to Meridi and started doing it in letter and in spirit. I think you are aware that when I went to Meridi, the first thing I did was to try to release most of the people who are under detention. And we have to, of course, make a distinction between criminals who are charged and people who were arrested because they are taking up arms against the government. So we extended the amnesty of the president. So that is an important component of a dialogue. So we extended that, and we were able to release over 40 people. Not all of them were from Meridi State, from different areas. So we released them. That's one. Number two, we immediately started passing signals saying we are willing to talk, to the people who are at large, and after a lengthy period of discussions, we started having dialogue with them, and if you may recall, there was a crew from SSBC and also a crew from other international media groups that went to Meridi together with the spokesperson of the military here to specifically go and capture the testimony of more than 500 boys and girls who had returned, who had put down their arms and had come back. Not all of them were from Meridi. They were from all areas of South Sudan, and most of them were those who had gone with Dr. Riek Machar when he left Juba and tried to camp in Meridi State, and the people of Meridi spoke loudly that they will not accept him in the area. So most of them came back, and when they came back, the way they were treated by the security agencies, by the military, by the government of the state, I think was also the third important aspect of the dialogue. So that triggered an influx. There was a surge of many these armed groups coming back from different areas, and they preferred going to Meridi State. And today we have quite a number of them. So one of the steps we took, we organized an orientation workshop. And the purpose of the orientation workshop was, first of all, to guarantee to them that we have accepted them back in the society, regardless of where they come from. Number two, we also passed a very strong message to the population around Meridi that yes, your properties were looted by these armed groups, yes, your relatives were abducted, your people were killed by these armed groups, but the fact that they are back, we need to be consistent. We do not want that spirit of revenge. So reprisal attacks are not tolerated. If anybody has got a case, you better go and open a case, So it served two purposes. One is to reinforce our recognition that these boys have come back, but also to remind the population that there's no need for reprisal attacks. So what we did, we introduced what we call certificate of security clearance. So each one of these boys and girls who came back were given certificate of security clearance signed by the security agencies saying that Mr. So-and-so or Mrs. or Miss So-and-so is no longer a security threat to the people and to the country, and they were asked to carry that with them. Just in an event, they are pointed at as being members of the armed groups. At least they will have something to protect them and to defend them. So most of them are back. Some of them have gone back to the military. Others are back in their day-to-day jobs. Those who were teachers are back in their teaching practices. But
so in summary, you have already started the dialogue among your people.
Right, the dialogue started.
Yeah.
The dialogue started, and so what is happening now? We basically plugged what we are already doing into this official call of the national dialogue. We started by the National Prayer Day, which was held on the 10th of last month in Meridi, which we did, of course, in Meridi. So we basically have started the process of this national dialogue.
Thank you very much, viewers of SSBC. With this, we have come to the end of our program. Till then, bye bye. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Okay. Thank you. Thanks for having me.